Doodly doodly. Good morning, it's CoWboy coffee time. It's CoWboy coffee time. It's CoWboy coffee time. Doodly doodly doodly. Good morning, everybody. It's CoWboy coffee time again. I hope you got your beans a bubbling and coffee a boiling. Oh, heated that up. Got to watch it when you heat it up. And get ready for that hot coffee when you just heated her up real good. Did a little research on that little tune I do for CoWboy Coffee Time. A friend of mine mentioned it sounded like Howdy Doody. Yes, that's close to what it is. And he was saying, I wonder about copyrights. Well, it turns out it's 130 years old. And a lady named Lottie Collins made it famous in London. Of course, it was written here in St. Louis. But she picked it up, had found the song. Of course, it was done by bands and everything. And she did it in the little burlesque places in London in the 1890s. And it was called Tra-La-La Boom Die. And over the years, that Mary Martin did it. I saw in research that played Peter Pan. And I always thought that was funny when I was a kid. I went, what? As a girl, can't be Peter Pan. But she sang it, different ones. And then Howdy Doody used it in the 50s for their showtime. It's Howdy Doody time. Of course, I go just a couple lines and then I do the yodel, so I'm off of it anyway. But just a little interest in history on that song. I knew I'd heard that little melody before other than the Howdy Doody show, when I was a kid, and sure enough, you've heard, Tra-La-La Boom Die, So it is a little trivia for those who aren't into trivia. Yeah. And enjoying the day. Adlai, Yazaz, how you doing, man? How And just enjoying life. As we got, we're like 77 degrees yesterday here. Approaching 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and been some warm days, the sun's shining. I gave a little money to the Arbor Foundation, that they're all about trees and planting trees and stuff. And so they showed up in my mail. They sent me 10 trees. And so I've been out digging and enjoying that. It's been great outside in the sunshine and the air working for 2 days, the last 2 days. And I got just a couple more put in today, and then I might can do a little fishing when I got all the work done. The horses are fed, the chickens are fed. My neighbor's horses, I've got them spoilt. They come and stand by the fence and beg. Bo, he's the worst one. I'm trying to work, and I'll tell him, Bo, I'm working, man. I'm busy. I'm digging a hole here. Got a shovel in my hand. I'm busy. And he'll just stand there like, I know you got a car in that house somewhere, So he's bad. He knows if he just keeps looking at me, I'll finally go get him something. Give him an apple once in a while, but you don't want to overdo the sweets like apple, on them. But they're just great. We got 35 acres of pasture land out this window beside me, right beside us, down to the farm. This farm down the road here has been here since 1803, the Dobson family. And what's crazy about that is the Dobson family are from Dobson, North Carolina, and Dobson, North Carolina is named after this family, their ancestor, the great-great-great-great-grandfather that had the Dobson farm there. And that was just crazy. When we bought this house, first time we come out to look at it, we turned in on the road down here, and we got this nice little lane, and it's small, and you got to pull over to let somebody go by. And I like it. Let's keep it that way. And a real little old country lane, and we don't want it improved. We don't keep it this way. And, it's about a quarter mile that way. You get to the main road, and you got the Dobson farm. And when we turned in the first time, I went, Dobson farm, I said, well, and then I met him, the guy there, Michael and his dad, and they told me the story. And I looked it up online and read it. It's actually that's true, the Dobson family. And I'm from Mount Airy, right by Dobson. I went to high school in Dobson, North Carolina. So it's just funny that they would be here. This farm, this land I'm on was owned by, it was part of a grant given to Andrew Jackson when he won the Battle of New Orleans. It was part of what he was given by then the president then, and the government, was land that stretched from way up where I used to live, which is a good 20 miles north of here, maybe 25 or 30. And here is still land that was given him. We live near the Hermitage, which was his home. He was given I don't know how many 100,000 acres of land in a grant. And there's an oak tree here that is 237 years old now. And that would have been standing here when Andrew rode by on his horse right through here, if he was out on his property riding around ever down here. So it is now the tallest tree in the region, in the area, and humongous. And we just love it. All kinds of, we think there are honeybees in the top of it somewhere, because they'll stream down to the feeder for the stuff we have in for the hummingbirds. And sometimes the honeybees, and they're streaming up and down. You see them shoot off up into the tree, and it's in a line, a beeline. How we used to find, bees in trees was following a beeline. In the garden I used to have up by the lake, I lived on Old Hickory Lake, and it was just down the hill. I missed that. I could walk right down the hill and fish. But there I had a big garden back in the field behind the house, and I was watching a beeline one day, and I followed them. And that's, it's hard to, you don't see that a lot with all the urban buildup, everybody building and moving, coming in. But I haven't found a beeline here yet. Then you got to get the honey, and that's when they get, the thing is on, But it was real interesting when we were home at my sister's, staying with my sister, the guy next to her house there, up right out of Mount Airy. He had beehives, and I watched him. He had some bees that had gotten out and were all over a tree. And he did a trick that he said his father taught him. His grandfather taught his dad, and he took a limb with leaves, and he rubbed around on the inside and the front of that hive, and he reached up and he took that that limb, and he just rubbed right at the bees, and then he just went down and he rubbed all around the hole to enter the beehives. And there they come. And I watched them. They just started streaming down and going back in the hive. I never knew that. I never raised bees. So that was very interesting. I watched them do that. And then I got me some honey from it too. So it was good honey. I like that good fresh honey. And, one of the friend of mine, she likes honey so much. One time she said, "I'm serious about my honey," But anyhow, just having fun and enjoying life. Good morning, my brother Mark over in North Carolina on the YouTube in here. And Miss Jan Brookfield in the UK over in England. Good morning to you, darling. And she just watched last week. She had some company over last week. I knew she'd be doing something. I had ladies over checking on her. We hope you're mending up real good. And some of her dance friends. Miss Jan does the two-stepping. I remember when Brian Smith was here, we played music together, probably in 1989, 1991, right in there. We played a place called Broncos, and they had a two-stepping going on. And when I went down to Travis Tritt, played at Miss Kitty's in Atlanta, and that's where he came from, when he just was getting signed. He wasn't a star yet. And I went down there and we played, and the people were two-stepping. They even two-stepped to Dixie Dan. I was like, I didn't know they'd two-step to that, but they did. They two-stepped to anything he played. But it was a fun night there. It was a great place. Confederate Railroad came out of there. They ran that same place. They'd all rotate and play. Little Texas was there. They played. All three of those came out of that place. But Miss Kitty's in Marietta, right at Atlanta, Georgia. And Miss Reba Matlock, good morning, and Monroe, Louisiana. So it's good to see you. I'm glad everybody's here. Kenny Badgett. And some of y'all rolled upwards on me here, and can't see the names anymore. And she's kind of tuned, I think. I I like a guitar tune. Now I'm gonna tell you, one thing I've played with people, and if they're out of tune, it just woof. If I'm sitting with my guitar and it's out of tune, at least if I can tell it is, it bothers me. I can't stand it. But the Beatles were out of tune sometimes, so I think there can be some great music if something's a little out of tune. Well, I never felt more like singing the blues. I never thought I'd ever lose your love. You got me singing the blues. Oh, the moon stars no longer shine. The love I knew and I thought was mine. The only thing that's left to do is cry over you. Oh, I never felt more like singing blues, 'cause I never thought I'd ever lose your loving. You got me singing the blues. Now I need sliding 50 here going to that, and play some of the lead and slide on it. And Don't Worry About Me. I love that song. Don't worry about me. It's all over now. Though I may be blue, I've managed somehow. Love can't be explained. It can't be controlled. One day it's warm, the next day it's cold. Love all those songs, I tell you. That record, when you hear the big guitar kick in, it was a mistake. It turned out to be one of the most famous guitar rides in country music and recording history. The producer had something. I'm not an engineer. I don't engineer. They don't let me near it. But he had something, a gate open. He had something that was making a sound, made it do that, and they listened back to it and went, whoa, man, what happened? The guitar was sounding like that. And after they listened to it a little bit, they went, you know what? That's a good mistake. That sounds really neat, So they kept it. And there's been accidents and guitar pieces like that happened in the studio many times in recordings. Rock music, pop music, everywhere, country. Great mistakes. A good friend of mine did that guitar riff for Roy Orbison. Well, Roy had the lick on Pretty Woman. He had that already. He had it. He played it on his guitar. And a good friend of mine, Jerry Kennedy, he said he showed it to him and he played it. He played exactly what Roy had the idea for. And that's that great guitar that plays, on Pretty Woman. Don, 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 So it was, there's things like that, that people walked in the studios and they had great ideas and things with them. And they turned into genius. Johnny Cash dreamed in a dream about the song his wife, June, and his good friend sang. This guy wrote like Wolverton Mountain, Ring of Fire with June Carter. But they brought him this song, Ring of Fire, and he listened to it. And that night he dreamed that there were horns on it. I mean, that was a dream. He just dreamed that there were the horn section on it. And that, that's how that record came about, was him dreaming that. And he went in and said, that sounds crazy, but I think that we could put horns on this. And a lot of records, a lot of things happen that way. They get made like that. And you just, you never, when you're in the studio recording, you never walk right on by somebody's idea. I was always like, of course, I'm working with some of the greatest musicians on the planet, and if they have an idea, I'm like, yeah, let me hear that, because you don't know. And I had so many times that things would turn out that way. Sometimes you have a lick yourself on Americana. I had that rolling thing going, and a little bit of a, you go in with that. And the Brent Rowland was one of the greatest guitar players, many records in town. And he said, "Show me that lick, Larry." And he sat down and played it. And then when he played on the record, he did it. He did the lick. So it's fun when you have a lick you're doing on the guitar, and a great musician like that's willing to listen. And he goes, yeah, that one time he told me, he said, "Larry, that just don't really work technically, but when you do it, it works." And he picked it up and you did it. And now one time we did a session, and a guitar player played on my session when I first started writing at Loretta's. It was about 1983. And I had this song, "Help Me Hold On." You've never heard it. It's never been recorded. But anyhow, "Hold On to Me." I'm sorry, "Hold On to Me." And this guitar line, he played it, and I was like, man, that's a really cool guitar line. And then a few weeks later, I'm driving down the highway going into Music Row, and I hear this record take off, and it's Ricky Skaggs. Down, 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 down. And it's the lick on the song. And I went, when did Ricky Skaggs cut my song? You know, but it was the lick was right on top of what the guy played on my session. But you know, I mean, those things have happened, and I was just like, oh, wait a minute, that's not my lyrics. And the melodies never weren't the same song at all. But it was really cool, you know, to hear that record and go, oh man. But everybody's playing on so many sessions. Claude Willie, he's a great session player and singer and guitar picker and player and bass player, I think, too. Claude, don't you play bass, I think? You have to tell me, you know. But I've seen it, but he plays in the Houston music scene. And they've got A.B. Middlestat down there, produced records just that didn't take a second to Nashville or Jimmy Bowen or anybody that produced up here, you know. They're just great records and great talent down there. Randy Corner, tell Randy when you see him, Claude, Mr. Wild Willie, Claude Willie, when you tell Randy that the guys on Ghost Rider Radio played his record, the record this week of our song, The Lie. And he played it on British radio, on the British radio show, the Ghost Rider Radio. And I was real pleased with that. I told him about Randy, and he asked me about him, and I said, look him up. You know, he had, you know, sometimes I talk in my sleep. What a great singer. And I told him his story, kind of, and just a great talent. And so we were playing our song. They're playing that record in England on Ghost Rider Radio. And so that was a hoot. You know, they cut that in 1983 or 4, somewhere right in there. And it was one of the first best records I ever had done by anybody, you know. Actually, it was just great. Actually, John Snyder loved that song, and he wanted to cut it, and Jimmy Bowen's producer didn't want to do it. And it was that John was having trouble hitting the notes that, John, I like John, I know you. And John Snyder is a great guy. And some of it didn't fit him exactly. I'm sure he'd sing it fine. But I think the producers said it was like old time country, and he didn't want to do it. So that was really what's going on. You know? So I was like, well, this is country music. Why don't you want to do old time country? You know. But John Snyder came out of the studio when he saw me, and I could see his face just fell. I was like, oh, they didn't do it, because he loved it. He loved it. I'd seen him a copy of Randy Corner's record, and I said, man, listen to this. I'm not sure they could have, his producer could have cut it as good a sound as that might have been part of it too, as AV had done, you know. Sometimes some magic gets captured, and it's really hard to step into a studio and find it. We had, on Dixie Dan, many years ago when I wrote that song, I had and when I went to record it, the guy was just like, yeah, he said, the guitar player, one of the greatest guitar players. The last cut I did on it with Billy Hullett. Bill Hullett played on tons of hit records the last 30 years or more, you know. Great guitar player on big records, you know. And he was kind enough to come out and work on my album, The Circle. And just good friends here, you know. These people are great. And I told him, you know what, every time I've cut that, and it had been on several projects, you know, I said, we've done it exactly the way I did the guitar. So he did a little new thing on the classical guitar, and I really liked it. But I asked him that because he was like, "Yeah, I like that lick, man." He was playing it, and I went, "No, you know what? This time, I'd really like to do a different thing with it, you know." And boy, if you listen to it, it was really great. And Donnie Skaggs went in and put some strings behind it, and it just turned into a great, fun new cut on that. And so anyway, just a little bit of, we're just visiting a little, talking about what happens in studios, you know, and how great things happen with music. Like I said, I think I said this last week, but the Jerry Kennedy that played that guitar part on Pretty Woman and worked with Roy Orbison on that record, you know, he told me how Roger Miller came in with Husbands and Wives, and he listened to it, and that's his producer, and you know, critiquing it, he said, "Roger," I said, "I don't think that's done." And so there's been songs that that people have said aren't finished that were hits, you know. So it was funny. He said he asked Roger. They were in the old what was it, Quonset Hut, Music Row, famous place where so many things were cut. And they were in the old studio there, and he said, "Man, they had an upstairs, you know, a little room that a lot of people would go up and kind of work on something and warm up and get ready." And he said, "Roger, why don't you go upstairs, man, and see if there's something else comes to you on that. You know, finish that song before we cut it here in about a half hour, you know." And he said Roger went off upstairs, and he said he got everything set downstairs in the studio, got everybody in place, and Roger came down and played the song. And I went, "Yeah, man." He said, "You get it?" Yeah. Sam did exactly like it was when he went upstairs. And I don't think I heard it because Husbands and Wives is a great song. But a lot of fun, you know, just great things and times out in the music business. You know, Billy Ray Reynolds, a lot of people like that, just great people that were part of all that music that rolled out of town in the 60s, 70s, 80s, you know. And it was just fun stuff, fun time, you know. And of course, they're having fun down there now. I mean, this is all good. It's all good down there right now, you know. I'm glad I came in when I did because it was fun, awful fun time to be here. Randy Travis sitting waiting to see his first meeting at Warner Brothers, and I'm sitting out there waiting to play him a didn't not for him, you know, nobody didn't know who he was. Carolina, we got talking, and he was washing dishes at Nashville, you know, there in Nashville, at a restaurant, and had a little stage, and they cook, make food, and it's still rocking today. It's a good place. I've played there. Everybody's played there. And I was there not long ago. Mo Bandy was in there with a new record. Well, it's probably, I guess, 2 years ago. You know, you say not long ago, 2 years. But and that was a fun night. And he closes his show with my song Americana, of course, and that's always fun. Sit there and see him do that song. And so glad that Doyle Lawson and Quicksilver in 2016, they cut it, put it on their In Session album, and up for a Grammy. Not my song, but I mean the whole album. So it was great to be on a Grammy-nominated album. The Steel Drivers won, and boy, the Steel Drivers, you know, all of them deserved it, and the Steel Drivers definitely deserve it, and God bless them, and congratulations. I thought about going, you know, and I hadn't been to LA, and I wish I'd like to go on there in the 50s, you know, when the 60s or sometime when I was a kid, but I'd like to sing that place then, and the cafes John Wayne was famous for lunching in, you know, all that. But I thought about getting tickets. I saw my wife. I said, "Well, this might win, you know, the Grammy. I mean, I'd like to be there." And we thought about it, and I looked up the tickets, had it set and put them on hold. And I thought we'd go. And I didn't end up going. And then I found out that when it's bluegrass, they do it during the day, a little ceremony just in the day. There's nobody there. And but I mean, it would have been sort of like fun to be at the Grammys, I think. Although there's a lot of stuff that ain't necessarily what I'm into all night long in that. So it's all right. But it was fun, you know, fun to be nominated for that. Doyle Lawson put a great cut. He did a great cut on it. And well, Miss Reba, you go do what you got to do. Watch later. And God bless you too. We appreciate you. And when you come up toward Nashville, bring me a little of that dirty rice now. And of course, we do today want to remember. I just was this morning watching. We want to pray and remember the people in Ukraine, and just lift them up in prayers. I saw little mothers pushing. People were there at the border of Poland, and they're giving them strollers and wheelchairs and things as they come in. And I want to find out where we can give to somebody directly that's helping over there. And the little mothers, they were stacking all of what they had been able to get out of their homes and their baby in it, and they were stacking behind and under it, and they were just all they could carry. And they were giving them strollers to push, their children in. One little girl, 10-year-old, had helped her mom carry, no telling how many, a couple of days, the baby. And the little girl was so happy when she saw a stroller. It showed her run over and get that strollers they were handing out and put that baby in it and cover it up in a blanket. And she was so happy. So we just remember them in prayer. It's a tough time there. It's an awful time for those people. It's always the little people. It's the children, the women, the men. Also the soldiers too. But we want to lift them up. Remember them. And I got a note. I'm supposed to remind everybody that, I found out that Walmart has two of my books, like the Barnes & Noble. It's the first and fifth book of the 6-book series. I have just finished the story in the 7th book, but it'll be a bit before it's out. But I just finished it today as far as the storyline, and then I'll be going back and working it, and been doing research, and still more to do on it before the book will be out. It's going to be called Dry Bones Rattling. I don't y'all go tell my title nobody. Nobody needs to do that. But Dry Bones are Rattling. But anyhow, they picked up the Blue Mountains of Dan. You can get it through Walmart, and also Clinging to Dirt and Breathing Air. And people used to I had a saying, I don't even know where I got it. I made it up, I reckon. I don't know. If anybody ever heard it, tell me. But people would say, "How you been, man?" When I'd see them, and I would just say, "Oh, still clinging to dirt and breathing air," And so I put a mountain man in it. That's what he said, and that's kind of the title of the book, Rocky Mountains. And that came out real good. I had fun with that. And one called Bear, I'm getting more reads on it online than any of them before. It's just something else. Canada, France, India, UK, everywhere, just reading online. And that's fun. That's great, So one called Bear, that was the last book. And we got, but I'm so pleased Walmart has that. They also have if you want the CD that my granddaughter sings Down in the River to Pray on. I didn't know this. I just found out this week. I'm searching, just searching around on things. I've discovered things I didn't know was selling my product, when I get online. And it said that that album is available, Blood Bought, Blood Washed, Born Again. And she was 9 or 10 then, years old, sang that song Down in the River to Pray that Alison Krauss did in that Oh Brother, Where Art Thou movie. But she loved that. She used to have her little headsets on when she was little and listen to the soundtrack to that movie. But anyhow, that's through Walmart. You can order it through Walmart. You can contact me and get an autograph one and ship it to you. But it's also on CD Baby. I don't know if UK, where different places get CD Baby, but if you can get on that, you can download it digitally, and have it digitally if you're into that. Some people want CDs still, and some don't. Some are all digital. I was talking to a kid, a great kid, that we go over to church with his family, known him for years. But he walked up in the gym and he said, "I heard you got a new record out." And this was a couple years ago. He said, and I said, "Yeah, it's called Train Yard Blues." And he took his phone, he went tick, 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 tick. Oh, got it. I'll listen to it in a little bit, or something. But he gets right in there and does it. Mahal Wilcox, there you are, man. And that's my nephew and Kevin's son. Kevin gave me a little advice the other day to get some crickets and go to this pond that I went to. I got some more trees to plant. If I get all the work done out here, I might slip off and try to fish, and I think that's a good idea. What Kevin said, or Nick, we called him Nick. You know, when I knew him at first, now it's Kevin. So, but he said take some crickets to that pond. So I think I'll do that. I do a lot of lure fishing, and it costs me fish sometimes, but I'm not after all the panfish and everything. But that'd be a good thing to do on down on that pond, I think. And of course, it's been cold weather, and they don't bite on the artificial like they do something that's real. And I know that. And I try to fool them sometimes with some stuff I dip it in, and garlic, something that smells, make something come after it. And but yep, it's coming soon, man. It's a lot of good warmth. We had 75 degrees here yesterday, so I need to get take a little time and get fishing this week. I hope. I got a bunch of stuff to do, but I hope to get a little bit of time and run off and do that at least for an hour or two. But I've got a bunch of paperwork to do, and taxes, and finish, and all that work, and plant the rest of these trees. Got 10 of them. I've did 7 of them the last couple of days. I got 3 more to put out. I'm gonna get that done. I like my work done before I go play. But yep, it's been good. Miss Jan Brookfield, she liked this song. Lookers and hopefuls, I call it. Riding on the southbound plane to Miami, FLA. Stewardess pours my coffee, and I'm trying to think of something cool to say. Short dress she's wearing catches my eye as she leaves. Little old lady across the aisle winks a silly grin at me. We're just hookers and hopefuls and Christians alive, busted down, never can be free. Are we just hookers and hopefuls and Christians alive, never really knowing what to be? You can read it in your papers every morning of your life. Divorce rate and crime, recession and everybody's rights. People are all worried about some things. All I've ever got to say, I keep telling myself there's gotta be a better way. Being hookers and hopefuls and Christians' lives, but down and never can be free. Are we hookers and hopefuls, Christian lives, never really knowing what to be? Are we just hookers and hopefuls and Christians' lives, busted down, never can be free? Are we just hookers and hopefuls and Christians and lives, never really knowing what to be? I keep telling myself there's gotta be a better way. I wrote that back when we were all being waxing philosophical back then, And I wrote that we all grew up on Chris Christopherson, of course, and you know there's an influence there. And I know when I was here in 71 as a kid, I stayed a couple months and slept in my car for a while. And then I got a boarding house room. And I was going around places, and there was a lady. There's a song called "On Susan's Floor." Did there was a lady named Susan, and she had a soft place in her heart. She was a darling. I didn't know her well. I was just a kid here, there was a writer down at one of the publishing houses I went into, and he said, "Man," he said, "I know you probably ain't got a lot of money." And she said, "Miss Susan now over here on 19th." He said, "Go by her house." He told me where it's at, what the house looked like, big old house, front post on it, big porch. He said, in the evening, she loves for songwriters to come by and just play music. Waylon went there, and she fed him when he was a kid, first come out here, and in the 60s and in early 60s, and just people like that would go by there, and then they'd go back and visit her once they were stars. They'd show up, pick the guitar a little, and just visit with her. And I went by one night because they'd be blowing the sandwiches out, and I didn't have much money, and didn't have sense enough to go get a job. I was just a kid, and I kept giving my name out at things out at the Opry, backstage and around and outside and over in the little Tootsie's Orchid Lounge. They'd all go in across the alley from the Opry. And I thought, when I'm going to hire me and I'll make a living in music. So anyhow, I was a green kid. But one night that night I went in there and got me a sandwich and all, and everybody sit down, and there were different rooms and people were playing in. And it looked to me, as I remembered, I thought it was Chris that was back there with her, and he talking, and but I've never been totally sure. I was new. I've just come to town, and they all smoking. I tried to stay out of that room because it's smoky, and I never did like smoke, breathe it, and all that stuff. And I was in the other room getting a bologna sandwich, but you could sit down and play your song, and the people sitting around, I don't know who they were now, and they'd say, "Oh yeah, that's pretty good, man," or they'd say, "Hey," one time one guy said, "Larry, you ever heard of Meter?" I said, "I don't know. What's her name?" But I was a kid. I guess some of my lines would be real long and the next one short, and I was just learning the craft, So it was a great time, and I'm glad that I came out that summer, because by the time I moved to Nashville later, after I did about 8 years in the Army and the whole blah blah blah, I decided after a few years I didn't think I could ever make a living at music, so I decided to stay Army. In the military. I loved it. And I was in a staff sergeant position in the Army Reserve, active, for years after I got out off active duty and had been deployed. But I decided, I don't know, music, how you ever make a living, pay your bills. So anyhow, when I came back, that Nashville I saw in 71 was gone. It was gone. I'm so fortunate that I was hard-headed enough to get in my 66 Ford and come out Nashville, didn't know nobody. Well, I knew the Wilburns, and I wrote, they signed me to write for them that summer. I did meet them, but I didn't really know them, and I didn't really know anybody here. And so I was just kind of on the street and in the car sleeping, and then got a little boarding house room, and it took all the money. And I was so green, I went back to the lady when I realized, boy, this is going to take all what I got. And I said, "Ma'am, can I get my money back?" I said, "I'm going to go broke." She said, "No, son, you have paid for the weekend. You are here." I was like, "Oh, no." So I was going everywhere. There were kids that fed people up over the little Tootsie's Orchid Lounge bar where all the Opry people would go in on their break and in between their Opry shows and hang out. And go up to Fire Escape, there was these little missionary kids that would give you some food. So that's how I'd get fed on Friday and Saturday night. Then you only had a Friday and Saturday night Opry. There wasn't no such anything else. And of course, the Opry was the Ryman. There wasn't any other Grand Ole Opry house. It was the Ryman. They were the original Grand Ole Opry. And so Friday and Saturday night, those kids would be up over the top of the bar. I thought it was funny. You got the gospel up here and the drinking down here. Kind of appropriate, I reckon. But anyhow, I didn't drink. I got one night, we got thrown out. A friend of mine come out. Tony Johnson had come out here, and Tony, he was hoping to get a job playing bass because he had played bass in a little trio with me back in Mount Airy, Mayberry, playing around places and fiddling convention festivals and stuff. And so anyhow, I didn't drink, and I was handing my number out in that Tootsie's Orchid Lounge area, to opera stars. I'd go, "This is the boarding house number. Call and tell them to ask for Larry." And I'm looking for a job. Play guitar, write songs. I'll write you songs, all that, you know. Well, you know. But the girl that was waiting tables, I think she was trying to make a living. And of course, when I was a green kid, I didn't know nothing about the world, and I didn't know nothing about understanding her job and money and making a living. And me and Tony would get us Coke and share it and sit it, and we were taking 2 spaces up in her little place, you know. And we went spending like the beer drinkers and all. And I know some of them would, Peanuts Montgomery was one of the guys would be in there. And he was a famous, you know, he sang in that trio with Marty Robbins trio, and he wrote songs. Peanuts, a famous songwriter. And Melville Montgomery, a country singer, that's her brother. But he would tease me. He said, boy, he said, that Pepsi going to rot your belly. You ought to drink beer. I didn't want alcohol, you know. And but finally the girl, she said to me and Tony, she said, if you ain't going to drink, get out. And we cooked out of there and headed out of that place and went across Broadway there talking, and we was just fussing. We were like, how can you throw good boys out, wasn't doing nothing, making no trouble? But I think she's, you know, she's trying to make a living, you know. Good evening from Paris, Tennessee. We got Cash Only. I got that. I got Johnny Cash on the wall right there, and I got a picture of him over here that you can't see. They were at the county fair last year, Wilson County Fair. They were selling some knives that commemorate the train. There's a locomotive downtown, and in this picture up here, it's got Johnny with his guitar. 1969, he took a picture in front of the big wheels of the train with his guitar. And I bought one of those knives to help rebuild that train and fix that locomotive up. So, but anyhow, yes, sir, Johnny Only. And used to follow you on Twitter before I left. Yeah, Twitter is what Twitter is. I don't blame you. But thank you, and it's good to see you. I kind of remember Cash. I'm Cash Only. I remember seeing that. I went back on Twitter for a little bit, and I make it CoWboy Coffee Time now. And I just use it. You know, I use all these things anyway. I don't go on Facebook for things except, you know, sometimes I got a comment. I try not to, but about things. But I just use it for a promotion tool, and that's what I do with Twitter. I'll just put my new book on there, and you can get it, you know, through Walmart. You can get it at Barnes and Noble. All that. It's like a promotion tool. Other than that, I don't want to read everything on it. I don't blame you. I ain't got time for all that, and I just want to be friends with folks, and I don't want to get into all the stuff, you know. So yep. And but thank you. It's good to see you in Paris, Tennessee, up there in Hank Jr. country. He was always good to me. I'm not a running buddy with Hank, but I met him in 1983 with a song I had called Blues the Southern Way. I want to do for you. And his people, I didn't know it. I was writing for Loretta, her company, and my back window at my studio at Loretta's office was in the old CMA building when it was up on the hill at Music Row. It's downtown now, a big, beautiful complex, the Country Music Hall of Fame. But when we were in the CMA building, crossing the Hall of Fame, and the CMA was downstairs, Country Music Association. And the back window, I could see Soundstage, doorway. And that's the big studio. I mean, everybody cut in there. Waylon, Hank Jr., you know, John Anderson. So, man, I could dive bomb people. I'd be like, okay. I saw John Anderson sitting in his truck, and I was like, run me back then it's cassettes. And I ran down there with a song I thought that John Anderson might like. Tapped on his truck window, and he rolled his window down. And all right, man. Of course, it had Loretta Lynn on there, so that told him I was bona fide, you know. And and yeah, Junior gonna be 73, man. I'll be 70 this summer. It just don't make no sense. It's crazy. I don't feel like it, and might look like it, but don't feel like it. And anyhow, I had met Hank many years before. In 1969, I was a DJ in Mayberry, Mount Airy, North Carolina, on WSYD radio, just for a brief time in the summer during high school. And I called myself the Drifter Show. It was only an hour, I think an hour. And we lived down in Ararat, a farmhouse, and I'd drive in, and Mom had the old Corvair that he had. And that's a real girl getter, let me tell you. I'm not. But, of course, boys, we thought Corvairs were cool, man. Had them louvers on it. But anyhow, I'd drive in and do that hour-long, you know, little spot on WSYD. I don't know how many, during the week, a weeknight. And so I went to and met Hank Jr. was at Winston-Salem, North Carolina. They call it the Coliseum, War Memorial Coliseum. And there were many big shows there then. Loretta, everybody played there, and came in and all kinds of music. Creedence Clearwater Revival, everybody. And so I went down and I had my little WSYD sticker on my sports coat my mom got ready for me. And put that patch on there, showed I was press and radio. And I had a little recorder with me, and I wish I had these recordings. Porter and Dolly were there. Hank Jr. There was a guy named Duca Paducah. Nobody would remember probably now. He was a comedian that was with Hank, come in there and was buddies with Hank. But he was a star on his own as a comedian. And but anyway, I met Hank that night, but just briefly, and he did a little tape for me. Hey, this is Bo Cephas, and this is before the fall off the mountain and all that. And he was doing his daddy songs, and I got to talk to Jerry Rivers, the fiddle player for Hank Williams, Don Helms, the steel player, and the Drifting Cowboys with Hank Sr. were playing on the road with Hank then in '69. They're called the Cheating Hearts. And so I got to talk to them and visit, but Hank wouldn't remember that then when I met him again in '83. I didn't bring it up, but I just told him how much I liked his music, and he did the spots for me for the radio station. And then in '83, I went over, I saw that Hank was recording, and I had this song, Blues the Southern Way, and I didn't know that everybody had given it to him already. He said his publisher, or the guy company, Bo Cephas Music, and his manager, giving it to him, and his A&R man and the label, everybody. He said, I got that song. When he looked at the cassette, this is '83, and he had his glasses off of that eye where he'd fell and got hurt on the mountain like that. He said, I'm holding on to this one. And now you got to remember, 1983, I'd had no hits. Nobody knew me, nowhere. Nobody ever heard of me, except Loretta and some of them that signed me. And the way he treated me was, Hank said, I like that. He said, I'm hanging on to that song. I'll do it. Now, Hank, by the way, you ain't done it yet. I wish you would. Lord, I'd love to hear him sing it. But anyway, he said, come on in here and hear what I'm doing. And they were working on a song called Mr. Lincoln. And his Major Moves album was the album that he was doing. And so anyhow, that he treated me that way when I never had any hits. He was a star, so I always liked Hank. I got to know him. I would go over to his management office and stuff, and sometimes he'd come. Rarely he would show up, but I would see his manager and pitch him songs, and boy, I miss them. I miss those folks. And he was always good to me. We'd speak once in a while. I had a little pistol my brother Timmy gave me one day. It's a little old tiny pistol. It shoots shorts, and it looks like a revolver. And my brother Timmy, my baby brother, had given it to me. And I had it in my guitar case, and I said, look at here, Hank. And he said, that's a St. Louis Special, he called it. I never heard of St. Louis Special, but that's what he said it was. And but anyway, over the years, we knew everybody, around there. And I haven't, I haven't seen him in a long time. Yeah, Merle, boy, I miss Merle. Merle Kilgore. I was talking about him earlier. Wrote Ring of Fire with June Carter, and I really I miss him. He was such a great character, and he was like, "Oh, my boy, I'm sorry that you cash only, and that lives up there in Hank's town where Hank is in Paris, Tennessee, not Paris, France. Now it's Paris, Tennessee." But anyhow, he said that Merle had passed. Okay, before you moved here. Okay, man, you liked him. He was a character. We called him. Everybody called him the Senator, not me. It was just kind of his name, and kind of a nickname. But he would talk like, "Hey, my boy, come on in here," And he was just like like a carnival kind of dude, just like that voice and that call. But great guy. I mean, he wrote little songs like Wolverton Mountain, Ring of Fire, on Johnny Cash. He wrote it with June, so he might have written a song or two too, And when he was a kid, he helped look after Hank Sr. when, let's just say, Hank had imbibed and needed some help to get up on stage. And he would tell me those stories. But he said an amazing thing. I had a couple people tell me this. Keith Stegall, that produces all the Alan Jackson records. And of course, Keith wrote a little old pop hit called We're in This Love Together. A a long time ago. But his daddy, Bob Stegall, the good old Texan, and he has a pistol from the 1800s, 1880s of the great grandfather or grandfather, his grandfather, I guess. He was in his 80s when I knew him, Bob. But they told me that the thing about Hank was that you might think, how's he ever going to do a show? They'd be like, are we going to get him to the microphone? And they said, oh, they don't know how it could be, but once he hit the mic, he didn't forget words. He didn't have a problem. And he, Hank Sr. And just amazing stories. But yeah, Merle Kilgore, great guy. And he was the connection I had where I would be in touch with Hank. And so I've sent something up to him before. But anyhow, Hank was always good to me, and I think the world of Hank Jr. And Brian Smith, man, good morning, my good friend over in the UK. And, we picked a lot of music together, and we've been friends since water. But Slide and Smithy recorded down at Sound. Yes, man. Yeah, that's right, man. Soundstage with Crystal Gale. Oh yeah, great studio. Well, my album Prodigal Son, part of that was done in there. The Sweet Magnolia song, Prodigal Son, and Honky Tonkin' Heart of Mine. I think 3 of the songs on the Prodigal Son project were cut with Chip Hardy. Was a great producer there. He produced the album that Loretta did of my song Walk on Water. But Chip did sides on me in there, and ended up, I used them later, a year or 2 later. I used those tracks with just permission, it was all good, on the Prodigal Son album that I did myself. I just put out a songwriter album, thing. But Soundstage was amazing to record, yeah. So many things were done in there. Waylon Jennings, the later ones. I also recorded at Hillbilly Central, where the early stuff were Tom Paul Glacier, Tom Paul and Waylon. And that's a famous little old hookup right there, I'm going to tell you, in that building. But it was great to work in there. That had a lot of history. Oh, my goodness. Songs like I'm Not Lisa. Ken Mansfield was assistant producer on that. And many of the songs done of Waylon in the early days. Ain't Living Long Like This. So some of them, I may get the titles wrong at that time period, but a lot of the old Waylon stuff was done in Hillbilly Central. And it's a famous place. There's a famous story where Tom Paul and Waylon kind of were having an issue. There was a little hall. These buildings are small, just like the alleys on Music Row. And some of them have got small halls. They're old houses. And the upstairs, they had their offices. To Tom Paul's place would overlap the door of Waylon's. And so Waylon, of course, we don't know what shape he was in. But anyway, one story is one day he come in and that door was across his again, and he took a chainsaw and cut it so in half, so the door didn't reach, which is a great fun story. Tom Paul came in and his door didn't fit anymore. So it is fun stuff. Ken Mansfield had heard of me with a lady that ran Loretta's company, and I'd sang for Loretta on a song. She had laryngitis, or was hoarse from the road, whatever, and couldn't sing. And her producer Jimmy Bowen wanted to hear the song, so Loretta sent word, said, "Hey, send this over, copy over there, and put it down, take it to stage, leave it over there." Well, then Jimmy said, "Who's this singer? Oh my goodness!" So Loretta called over and she said, "Get in the studio and cut some sides." And I was like, "I don't want to be no singer and I can't be a songwriter. I didn't want to do that." But I went, okay, I'll do it. And so Ken, the lady that ran Loretta's publishing company, Meredith Stewart, called up Ken Mansfield, who had he had managed in America some little group called the Beatles. They were Apple Records USA. He ran that office and helped them because he had just lucked into them kids when they came. And he had also produced on Waylon stuff, like I said. And he's the one who told Lisa, I'm Not Lisa, the song. He told Jesse, he said, "You got to release that. That's a hit." And so anyway, he took me into Hillbilly Central, and Tom Paul was upstairs, and we were recording. And Tom Paul heard me, And I always loved this. We became friends after this. I mean, just knew each other. And we would meet at the Longhorn on liver and onions day. He liked liver and onions, and me too. And but he heard me singing, and he came down and he got involved, which is good and bad with Tom Paul. He was a character, and he wouldn't mind me saying that. But I'd seen him in 1976, band I was playing in. Some of the guys, Wayne, the bass player, was later the bass player in Confederate Railroad, and but we didn't make it big when the one I was in. But we were playing Executive Inn in Evansville, Indiana, and we opened for Waylon and Tom Paul. And I'd seen Tom Paul briefly then. He came by me, and I mean, his wild-eyed, and he had his, put another log on the fire, So I told him I'd seen him then. Of course, he didn't remember me. I just opening act there, playing, singing. And but I saw him come through, and then Waylon, and Wayne had given Waylon's them a tape of my stuff, and his comment was, what's he doing out here? He ought to be in Nashville, and that's as good as stuff we get in there, So that was a big boost to me to come on and move to town. But it didn't pay, you guys, to pay the bills, So I just stayed in the Army and reserve and did time, and until they called me from Loretta's and 80, and I came back to Nashville and told my wife, Laura, I said, well, darling, let's not going to stay in the Army. I was about to re-up and go full-time Army permanent duty again and do my time. I'd had to do about 12 more years, and anyhow, went with them. My sister, Darlene, good morning, darling. She had to go to the bank and Walmart. Out in Wally World. Lord of mercy, I was in, up in Canada at the end of the world there before you flew into Moose Camp. And good gracious, Fort McMurray. I mean, there ain't nothing above that to the North Pole, as far as towns and cities. This was a oil boom town, that oil sands where you get the oil out in Canada. And I was there, and I couldn't believe it. We went around the corner. Of course, I needed some boots for an out back there, and to go to camp, and but that turned out good. But anyhow, I couldn't believe it. I turned the corner, and there's the Walmart in Fort McMurray, Canada. I mean, there ain't nothing else there other than the oil people. But of course, I'm sure that's why Walmart was there. But I just didn't expect a Walmart, So I thought, well, they're everywhere. Just anywhere you go, Wally World is there, So it turned out good that year. This was about 2001. Went to the moose hunting with a friend of mine. He was an outfitter in Canada and a songwriter for DreamWorks. Steven Spielberg had a country music division for a while on Music Row in Nashville. DreamWorks Publishing. And so anyhow, Harvey wrote for them, and they would fly me to Canada and let me shoot a moose, get some meat, fish, catch some walleye, and pay my way so I could write with Harvey. And so you see the good Lord work things out. Good gracious. And I'd always dreamed of going, up there and hunting and fishing in Canada. And this is on the same parallel latitude as you got Nome, Alaska, and you come over to the Birch Mountains. That's where the moose camp was in Alberta. So that's how far up we were. And then you go on across. Now we had another camp we'd go to. I went up there about 5 different years. And we'd write songs and play and get some meat to bring home, catch some walleye and sneak them home in our dirty underwears. I didn't tell that. But there's some reason rule in Canada that you can only bring one walleye home. Well, what one walleye? So I figured if they want to dig through my dirty underwear after 10 days in camp, go right ahead. So I'd stuff them in there, brought some home. Lord forgive me, but I wanted some walleye. Laurie loved it too. I brought them home. But, I'd always had that dream to go do that when I was a kid. Before I met Laurie and fell in love, and before I started playing music, I dreamed of being at Jack London. I'd read those books, Call of the Wild, and I was going to go to Canada and trap hunt, And so anyhow, it was just a great thing the good Lord worked out that I got to go, and I'm thankful for it. I enjoyed every trip, and we'd be there. We had a Scottish banker there. You see those old movies, and the Scottish men, the businessmen, they would be in those little suits and those knickers, or what do they call them, things, the way they dressed, hunting out in the woods. And he was sitting right by the fire with us, and he was dressed like that. Shot, because I'd shot a moose. We used a 75 caliber elephant round, and Harvey had a Army Navy Lapua sniper rifle, and so used that. And I'd shot, and when he was cleaning it, and I don't know if Harvey was just saying this, but he said that the bullet had gone through between the ribs, throughout the lung, and so the Scottish guy was like, "Wow!" And I went, "Yes, North Carolina boys, we can shoot." Of course, but we gave the meat to the children. It was 1,600 pounds, and the Feed the Children, Alberta, the Native American, well, they call them First Nation people there. They need food. I mean, they need help. So I donated almost all the meat to the Feed the Children, and that way, that's their country where they lived, and so that way, you take a moose, while the kids get food, and it's a part of their life to eat that way. So now we love the moose. I still had, good gracious, a couple 100 pounds of meat brought back. We put it on dry ice and rode back down to Idaho. We was driving about 26 hours, and just a great. Alberta's like Texas moved north. Big old ranch and humongous ranches. You ain't seeing the big house. You're on the road. I mean, it's a long way off, and maybe miles and miles. But love it up there, and it was just great. It was great to give the kids the meat and help them and the families. And the airlines that we flew in. You fly in a float plane. That was owned by a great friend of mine, and he was actually a chief. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact name of the tribe now. It's been since 2004, 5, 6 since I was there. But the airlines, that's what he had on the plane. So we were supporting them too by going in there, And so just great. He was best friends with Harvey, the outfitter. And we had a guide that was what we call Native American here, First Nations there. And it was great, He would... I know I walked in, I had my hair was a little longer then. I was doing the Prodigal Son stuff, Rock and Rebel things. I had done that. And I had my hair, but that's right here, not no girl link, just right down here, And kind of doing the Wayland outlaw thing, whatever. And I went into a little store in Alberta, Canada, what you'd call one of our little markets here, 7-Eleven, whatever. And so this Native American or First Nations guy walked up to me and he said, "You see the people on the road today?" And I was like, because I'm in my complexion and all, and a little bit of blood in me. Not enough. I ain't never going to be chief. But in history, we got a little, not much. But anyhow, I worked in the sun all my life, in the fields. But we're a little dark complected, so he thought I was people. And so I thought, this is funny. So I went, "No, I ain't seen nobody out there on the road today." And when I did it, all that I southerned it up all I could. He just died laughing, him and all the guys with him. Everybody got a big laugh. They thought I was one of, they called me the people. "You see the people on the road today?" And so it was just funny. Everybody got a kick out of that. And he wasn't expecting a southern accent, But cash only. You say that you saw over here on YouTube. You said it met Richie Albright. Yes, sir. Richie produced Wayland also, and great guy. I saw him. He passed away this last year, a year or so more, and I saw him last. He was near Music Road playing in a place with the Waymores. They still tour, And I got up and did something with them, song stuff. And I had a song that Wayland did in the studio. I don't know if it'll ever come out. And Richie wasn't sure, it had been, that was like the early 90s. And so he wasn't sure how finished it was. So I don't know. But Richie was a great guy. And boy, I love that drum, his drumming. Oh my goodness, that's that backbeating foot. Got that foot down there going with that bass. That's what I like. But I was telling you about Hank Jr., cash only on here. He lives up in Paris, Tennessee, there with where Hank lives. One of his places in Alabama. he liked this song and said he'd do it. And I hope he does it sometime. He did give me a single in 1996, so I ain't complaining. But this song, I'd love to hear him do it. He said he'd do it one day. Well, ever since I was just a baby boy, I've heard the fiddle play a bow. It's the way of the sun to feel an awesome feeling flow. I've got to sing the world a song. Another child got something to say. Born of the South and I love my home. I'll sing the blues the Southern way. White cotton fields, long boxcar trains. When you're from Dixie, they're a part of you. Confederate ghost, touch your deepest dreams. Like midnight rain, pass on through. Got to sing the world a song. Another child got something to say. Born of the South and I love my home. I'll sing the blues the Southern way. I've got to sing the world a song. Another child got something to say. Born of the South and I love my home. I'll sing the blues the Southern way. Born of the South and I love my home. I'll sing the blues the Southern way. Yeah, that was one that I first met Hank about about that song, and I was surprised he already had it. And it was Dave Burgess used to run his publishing back in the 80s and late 80s, and he'd given that song, mid 80s, I'm sorry, and he'd given that song to him, and Merle Kilgore had given the song to him, and the guy over there, Dirt, we called him Dirt, that was his nickname, that he liked it, you know. He was Don Lanier at MCA Records. He was the A&R guy that searched for songs when Waylon was on the label for him. He'd given it to him. Some merchandiser had given it to him. I didn't know he had it from everybody. I took run over there and give it to him. And but anyhow, what's funny with that song is that Waylon's brother had played it for him, and Waylon had it. And the Waylon heard Hank had it, and Hank found out Waylon had it. And they didn't want the other. One of the other didn't want to do it on the other one, you know, take it. And then everyone did it. I said, "Wait a minute now, somebody flip a coin here, head and tails, come on." But anyhow, you know, they say if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. That's just part of the thing I did. You know, it's all good. You win some, you lose some, and the good Lord been good to me, and I won some. And you got to just suck it up when you lose them. Just keep going, you know. So that's just the way it goes. I see it as an odds game. Just keep going, you know. And great to do it. But I had a great time. It's time to say goodbye and get on down the road. I was on the elevator one day in Nashville, and I said something to somebody, and I was about to head back out to the house by the lake, and I said, "Well, I'm going to get on down the road." And when I said road, the boy, this one guy, I never met him in my life. I was up there at my attorney, had an attorney, a big high-powered music attorney then. They was all fussing, trying to get me a record deal, and I didn't want it. They wanted me to, and I didn't. But anyhow, I call it the halls of power. Good Lord, the elevator and the furniture are better than what I have in my house. But anyhow, that boy turned and he said, I reckon he's one of the lawyers. He was dressed like a Philadelphia lawyer, my mom didn't used to call it. And he said, I know where you're from, sir. He said, you're from North Carolina. And I said, going down the road. And anyway, I said, well, I'm proud. I've been in Nashville all these years, and you can still tell. But, well, I got to get busy. I got trees to plant, and try to go fishing if I get all the work done. And we're going to have about 75 degrees today. We had 77 yesterday, 70-something tomorrow. And so we've got some great weather. Probably fool the trees. They'll start budding. Anyhow, the coffee's getting low here. Now I got to work, get out and dig. But I love digging in the ground, working. I'm going to make my garden bigger, turn it today. And I'm get a bigger garden this year. And right now, the ground is dry enough. It's going to start back Saturday night, some rain. And I get me a bigger garden turn now. So want to see some longer corn rows this year. The old song Travis did, where corn won't grow. Well, it grows here. So y'all have a great one. We're going to wrap her up here. Say goodbye. Y'all come on back now. See you next week. Good Lord willing, and the creeks don't rise. It's Cowboy Coffee time. Cowboy Coffee time. Cowboy Coffee time. Y'all come on back. We're here. And we'll see y'all next time. Lord have mercy. Everybody be better to your neighbor, and your neighbor will be better to you, by God. See y'all again. Good Lord willing. Bye now. Cowboy Coffee time. Cowboy Coffee time. Doodly, doodly, doodly.